What happened to me is a complete and utter injustice.
Now, it's understood to be the first time such an action has been taken up by the United Nations over the undermining of the presumption of innocence in this country.
Let government stand by and let it happen. What's worse, they make no attempt to apologise for the damage to the reputation of innocent people, nor do they seek to repair that damage.
When baseless allegations in the Independent Commission Against Corruption shredded his family's good name, Charif Kazal was devastated.
It has been extremely horrific. The pressure at every level.
His family has suffered the persecution of ICAC going back years and years.
The businessman's nightmare began 6 years ago when he woke to defamatory front-page headlines claiming he and his brothers had corrupted a public official to secure cheap leases for their cafes and restaurants in the Rocks.
There were no favours, there were no benefits, and there were no corruption.
He says ICAC was not interested in the truth, ignoring documented evidence of his innocence.
That there was nothing wrong.
As it stands under ICAC, the punishment is marching with a blaze of cameras and microphones all over you, and then you read about yourself in headlines the next day, independently of your innocence.
And his family, including children, have been left to choke in the smoke he says never had any fire.
The ones that had to suffer by bullying, abuse, even one of my nieces had to resort to self-harm.
Charif has set up a website to counter the stain of defamation that still dominates the search engines of the internet.
When you go and meet someone, the minute you hand your business cards to them, the minute you talk to them, they go and Google you. And the rubbish that's been published about me and my family is there.
We rail about the denial of freedoms in communist China. It's ICAC itself which should be under the microscope in New South Wales. So many innocent people have been condemned by ICAC, publicly vilified, and had their reputations trashed in headlines across major newspapers.
Succinctly described by the Acting Inspector General of the ICAC, Mr John Nicholson SC, when he said, "There should be no doubt the public perception of a finding that a person engaged in corrupt conduct amounts to a label as potent as any criminal label short of murder."
He has now joined a growing list of people claiming ICAC has abused its immense powers.
Thousands of times worse than being arrested by the police and charged with something, because at least then you get before proper courts who are completely, and in the middle of, between the court and the police, you have an independent prosecution body which has nothing to do with the investigation, deciding whether something should proceed.
It represents a situation where someone is burdened with all of the inevitable life-destroying repercussions of a finding of criminality that has not been tested against the centuries-old protections that individuals deserve and receive in courts.
And it has been a litany of disaster, of one innocent victim after another being persecuted by this out-of-control body set up by the government, which operates virtually and often outside the laws of this country as we know them, dating back centuries.
Untested allegations which are presented almost as biblical truth.
Charif Kazal believes nothing short of a royal commission can lift the lid on what he claims to be ICAC's entrenched culture of groundless persecution.
The time has come, enough is enough. And the least they could do is start all over again and call a royal commission. They have gone wild, were arrogant, were above the law.
He won't rest until his family's name is cleared.
Premier Mike Baird has agreed to meet with the Sydney businessman we spoke with last night, whose reputation has been destroyed, he says, by an out-of-control ICAC.
I was trying to contact Mr. Baird and through his office to ensure that he could listen to my pain and suffer.
Mr Kazal lives in the Premier's Manly electorate, and after 10 years revealed the businessman's anguish last night, Mr Baird has finally agreed to see him.
As a local constituent, if he wants to meet, of course, I'm happy to meet him.
And I hope that he can assist in ensuring that no other person in this state will go through what I have been through.
Now, the Kazal matter was the subject of a very strong criticism by the then acting ICAC inspector, who said that Kazal and Kelly, and this is his words, were unable to test the corrupt findings made against them in a court of law. The consequence is that each has been stigmatised and ashamed by a finding that has not been made and cannot be tested in an environment that has rules of evidence and procedures established over centuries to ensure a fair and impartial hearing to them and their opponents.
What ICAC has done, I mean, they must stand to account for.
There has been two former inspectors of ICAC, Inspector David Levine and Acting Inspector John Nicholson. Both have recommended an exoneration protocol into innocent victims such as myself.
An organisation that is not bound by the rules of evidence can limit the rights of defence counsel where its decisions are not subject to a merits appeals, which means if it makes a mistake on the merits, it's there forever.
The inspector that oversees ICAC's decisions and their operation has cleared your name in Parliament, but that doesn't make it official, does it?
Well, not really, unless the Parliament of New South Wales and the Premier of New South Wales take real action, real leadership on dealing with this mess and ensuring citizens like myself who are caught up in this mess are being given the opportunity to clear their names.
Officially exonerated is what you want.
Officially exonerated, an apology. I deserve an apology. Me and my entire family, we've been put up with a lot of rubbish for the last 8 years.
Will you meet with Mr. Kazal? I mean, this is one of your citizens. How would you like this to be your mum or dad?
Look, I certainly appreciate it when people, and I know others have been...
But it's not good enough to appreciate it. You've got to do something about it, right?
I understand, and I undertook the last time we spoke to get advice on these matters, and I've requested that. And
it's taken a while.
I appreciate it.
Come on.
I just want to tell you, Charif, we honour you.
Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate what your family's done over 25 years of business in this country.
Thank you.
We accept the fact that you have been strung up and hung out to dry by a court which is rogue, out of control. It's not a court. It is it's a bully boy, bash 'em up, crash 'em out, assertion, innuendo, rumour and smear. It's got nothing to do with the law, and we apologise on behalf of citizens, even if the government won't apologise.
There's nothing in the Parliament, Chris, that sort of says, well, listen, we apologise, we got it wrong, and we're going to announce to the world, page 1, which is where the allegations were, page 1 to say these people were before ICAC and they are innocent. Where is that?
Look, if this was an isolated case, the government might be able to justify doing nothing.
ICAC had that evidence, exculpatory evidence. They didn't even provide it to my lawyers and went ahead and had a public inquiry just to defame me and my entire family and pursue me personally to benefit an ex-business partner who they put in place as a star witness. They've taken him in as a star witness, and I had 2 legal cases against him in 2 different jurisdictions, but ICAC decided to bring him as a star witness to bring me down so he could benefit.
Well, I'm from New South Wales, and I've lived through what has been, I think, the farce of the New South Wales ICAC. At the end of the day, the New South Wales ICAC has, I think, disappointed because it just became a vehicle for corporates, for bureaucrats, for politics, politicians and others just to sling mud around. And that wasn't elevating or doing anything.
Rarely does such a case hit the United Nations, but the UN Human Rights Committee has activated an investigation into complaints by Sydney businessman Charif Kazal that his human rights have been violated by the New South Wales anti-corruption watchdog. 8 years after he was labelled corrupt by New South Wales ICAC but never charged, the UN has asked the federal government to respond to complaints.
Australia is a ratified signatory to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. That means it must follow the rules and the processes and afford its citizen the presumption of innocence, the rule of law. You're innocent until proven guilty.
And this is on a man who the ICAC inspector says has no case to answer.
Many, many times with bodies of this type, corruption and commission type bodies at a state level, they have fallen well and obviously short of long accepted standards of justice and fairness.